would you pay for a big rolled up pile of weeds? A Fox 6 investigation finds 17 bales of poor quality hay are costing taxpayers in one community $120,000.
It's all part of a strategy by real estate investors to avoid paying taxes. And the state tells Fox 6 investigator Brian Polson it's perfectly legal. Brian.
Sure is, Ted and Mary. You have to pay taxes on any property you own, but some developers and real estate investors have apparently found a way to avoid paying theirs. Just pretend to run a farm, at least one day a year. When you think of what a farm looks like, you might picture something like this. Or maybe this. But what about this? How is this a farm?
This isn't a farm in the traditional sense.
Welcome to Fairway Woods, a once promising upscale golfing community in Twin Lakes that is sitting largely dormant thanks to a sluggish housing market. It has paved streets, street lights, electrical service, and subdivided lots for sale. The only crops appear to be natural grass and weeds. Still, according to state law, it's a farm for tax purposes.
In the summertime, he goes through and he crops a crop of hay off the whole thing. And that suffices under Wisconsin's law.
Rocco Vita is the assessor for Twin Lakes and other communities in Kenosha County, where real estate developers are taking advantage of a law that gives special treatment to agricultural land.
It is imperative that we do keep land available for agriculture.
Kenosha County farmer Dave Daniels says the law was intended to stave off the development of farmland, especially near cities where urban growth was driving up market values and, in turn, driving up taxes.
It was pricing farmers out of the ag sector, and they were selling land off because they couldn't afford the property taxes.
So in 1995, state lawmakers passed a bill that allows farmland to be taxed on its use value instead of its market value. But a legislative audit released last year found that loopholes in the use value assessment law have allowed non-farmers to snatch up farmland anyway while still dodging millions of dollars in taxes.
The primary developers out here leveraged that law early on.
Most of the lots in Fairway Woods are now owned by Magara Properties of Northbrook, Illinois, which hired a local farmer to cut the grass and weeds and bale it for hay. They even sent pictures to the assessor to prove it. Is there any particular number of times they need to do it or anything like that, or how?
No.
The farmer was here one time all year, and according to the Wisconsin Department of Revenue, that's all it takes to consider the property as being actively farmed. So as long as they're doing the minimum, then they get that tax treatment.
That's correct.
The farmer, who asked me not to use his name, says he hauled away 17 bales of weed-infested hay, so poor in quality he couldn't even feed it to his cows. He said it was, quote, a pain in the blank to do it, but he had to because it was a package deal. You see, Magara Properties leases a neighboring tract of land to the farmer for growing corn. In return, the farmer agrees to cut the hay in Fairway Woods. Those 17 bales might as well have been made of gold. They saved Magara Properties and a few other local investors approximately $120,000 in taxes. That's $7,000 a bale.
Probably needs some review.
Kenosha Assemblyman Peter Barca says it's a good law that could probably use some tweaking.
If somebody is, let's say, taking advantage of a loophole in the law, then that means other people in the community are paying more of the freight.
That isn't fair.
People like Betty Loringer.
I feel sorry for the developers, but everybody's having a problem right now, and we're not getting loopholes.
Betty paid nearly $5,000 in Twin Lakes property taxes this year, while the average lot owner in Fairway Woods paid $1.88.
Like everybody else here, if you own the land, you should have to pay the taxes on it.
The municipality still needs to maintain these roads, still needs to plow the roads.
Vita wasn't actually the one who appraised these lots. It was one of his employees, Walter Graber. You appraised it?
I did the entire subdivision, yes.
According to records prepared by Graber's boss, most of these lots are worth $90,000 on the open market. But Graber valued them at $100 each. How do the owners feel about that? Well, just ask Walter. You own 7 of the properties in this development.
My family actually has 7 lots. I am part of that. I have about 21% interest.
That's right. The person who approved this special tax treatment in Fairway Woods also benefits from it.
Isn't that a conflict of interest?
The Wisconsin Department of Revenue says that state law does not prohibit an assessor from assessing his own property, which means there was no one to ask why Graber applied a full ag use tax break to one of his own lots, even though it's largely wooded, meaning the whole lot can't possibly be farmed. Graber blames that on old satellite photos.
According to new aerials, there needs to be an adjustment made.
Okay.
So I will make it.
Actually, both the old and new photos that are publicly available seem to show substantial tree coverage on one of Graber's lots, and yet he and his family paid a total of just $13 in taxes on all 7 of their lots last year.
I don't know, it just seems like whoever owns that property, and it happens to be your family,
Right.
is taking advantage of a tax break in a way that wasn't intended.
Well, that could be said of all of the, if that's what the intent was of the legislature when they passed the bill.
The hay just comes up. If the hay comes up and you go out there, are you still really farming?
Graber is not a farmer, but next year he just might become one.
Our intention is to put on Christmas trees.
Under state law, Christmas trees qualify for the tax break.
I guess there's always a way to get around something if you try hard enough.
Now, earlier this week, I called Angeliki Stamos. I don't know if that's how you pronounce her name. I know she is the owner of Magera Properties in Illinois. She told me her company does absolutely no residential development and that their only interest in the Fairway Woods properties is to farm them. She then asked me if I was with the Agriculture Department. I repeated that I'm a reporter working on a news story. She then told me she was late for a meeting and hung up on me.
You talked about a state audit focusing on those loopholes released last year. Anything
Correct.
come out of that audit?
Not that I know of. In fact, not that I can tell anyway. No one ever called for a hearing to discuss the findings on this. Not Democrat Peter Barca, who was in charge of the audit committee last year, and not Republican Samantha Kirkman, who's in charge of it now and actually lives near Twin Lakes. Barca says Governor Walker has vowed to oppose any changes in the use value law, so there's no point having a hearing. Representative Kirkman declined to do an interview, instead sending a written statement that frankly didn't answer any of my specific questions about the tax break for Fairway Woods.
All right. Brian, thanks.
All right.